Oh boy, do I have a fun one for today. Did you know there's a conspiracy theory out there that Taylor Swift is a clone? And that she is a clone of the daughter of the founder for the Church of Satan. Satan! Satan! I'm not gonna string you along or anything like that, so I'll just say straight away that no, I don't think Taylor Swift is a fucking clone of anybody. But that still doesn't mean it isn't any less interesting or funny. And according to the people of 2016, this was a trend people were legitimately following. More often than not, the articles being written were tongue-in-cheek, but some others, not so much.
At first I found this kind of silly, but of course, when I researched into this topic, I kind of grown suspicions. Now, whether you like it or not, human cloning is a thing. It's always been a thing, since the 50s. Now, whether or not Taylor Swift is a clone, it still doesn't change the fact that she is an Illuminati puppet. Now, one of the main evidence that Taylor Swift might be a clone of Zeena LaVey is that they look strikingly similar. I mean, you would have to be blind not to see the similarities. I also looked at Zeena Schreck or Zeena LaVey. Apparently, she also is a musical artist.
It's been a while since my previous Satan versus Satan video, and since we are in the month of Halloween, let's take a look at the conspiracy theory that Taylor Swift is a Satanist Illuminati clone. Before we get started though, I do want to address something from my previous Satan versus Satan video. To the many people that commented on the video, I want to sincerely say thank you for taking the time to watch it as well as comment, because it was kind of cool going on there and seeing different people discussing like different variations of their religion and what they felt and believed, and I thought it was interesting and really cool seeing fresh perspectives and opinions. So sincerely, thank you. I really appreciate you guys taking the time to do that. However, according to a few commenters, I was pronouncing the founder of the Church of Satan's name wrong. The correct pronunciation is in fact Anton LaVey, and I do hope that in this particular video, I'm able to rectify that mistake. Anton LaVey, for those who don't know, was born April 11th, 1930, and he would go on to form the Church of Satan on April 30th, 1966. Wherever you stand on the line for the whole Satan versus Satan and what is true Satanism, I think most people of those faiths can agree that without LaVey, then at least on a mainstream level, Satanism wouldn't be where it is today. So fast forward to November 19th, 1963, when Zeena LaVey was born, a little less than 3 years before her father would make history in founding the original Church of Satan. I won't be going over all the ins and outs of Zeena LaVey's life. I will be kind of going back to them periodically when we get to the conspiracy theory to kind of like add more context to the situation, but this may be a topic that I'll cover like sometime in the future because there is so much depth to Zeena that like it would take a whole video. But the long and short of things is a former high priestess of the Church of Satan, married Nicholas Schreck in 1988, and wrote the book Demons of the Flesh, the complete guide to left-hand path sex magic. Fun fact, Zeena's been a big proprietor of tantric sex and other things of that nature for most of her life up until today. She would then have a falling out with the Church of Satan and her father in the early 90s. Some political and family squabbling led to this. Keep this in mind because I'll come back to this a little later when we're actually talking about the conspiracy. After which she briefly joined the Temple of Set after feeling betrayed by her family for years. She would become a high priestess here as well, but would ultimately end up leaving the temple with other members and form the Sethian Liberation Movement, which is a non-profit group based on the teachings of Seth that state, since 2004, Phoenix provides spiritual healing for victims of exploitative pseudo-religious organizations, former gang members, whistleblowing ex-employees of corrupt corporations and government agencies, relatives of the violently mentally ill, and survivors of all forms of institutional abuse, including secretly abused children and spouses of prominent personalities. Hey, if people are using stuff like the Sethian Liberation Movement to get out of like cult-like situations, and as long as the people aren't being exploited again for like the fact that they've basically been manipulated for years, then I think that's cool because we all have our own different ways of coping with shit. Do whatever works best for you. I do also want to say that I wasn't able to find like a website or anything for the Sethian Liberation Movement, so I can't really confirm a lot of the shit that they're saying aside from what's on the Wikipedia page and on Zeena's website, so I'm going to take their word for it. But I think that if you have a movement, I mean, aside from a Facebook page, I think it might not be a bad idea to get like a main website or something, or at least a fucking Twitter page. Some other quick facts is that she is a bereavement counselor, was a high priestess of the werewolf order, which honestly sounds kind of badass. She was in a band with now ex-husband Nicholas Schreck entitled Radio Werewolf, and has also had solo recordings as recent as March 11th of 2020, both of which were very experimental. Yeah. Yep, looks like I hit all the Wikipedia bullets. All joking aside, I do have Zeena's official website and YouTube page linked below for you to check out. Cause I'll be real, she's lived a pretty fascinating life that my brief ass synopsis and a wiki page only really scratches the surface of. Moving on to Taylor Swift though, who am I fucking kidding? You know who Taylor Swift is.
Yo, Taylor, I'm really happy for you. I'm gonna let you finish. But Beyonce had one of the best videos.
So let's dive into the real juicy bits. Why the fuck do people believe that Taylor Swift is a satanic clone of Zeena LaVey? For starters, I mean, look at them. They look really close and could even be sisters. You'd have to be blind not to see it. Honestly, the easiest way to prove this whole thing is just to basically wait another 10 years, because if Taylor keeps aging the same way Zeena does, could just be a coincidence.
Or the Illuminati.
Satan! Satan! And honestly, that's the best place to start when it comes to looking at this, is the whole satanic Illuminati cult stuff. If you've been anywhere on the internet, you've undoubtedly heard the conspiracy theory that most of the world's powers and celebrities are all a part of this gigantic satanic cult called the Illuminati, or one variation of it. Hell, there's been specials on the History Channel that have said it. Interestingly enough, there are points where the cult are not even Satanists at all. Instead, something completely different. Many times in the past on this channel, I've compared things to Schrodinger's cat. And I always think it's hilarious because Satanism is always like at the center of the Illuminati, and then at other times it's completely not. Being replaced by aliens or whatever's fucking convenient for the plot, but then they'll always like go back to Satanism. So it's like, it's Satan, but then not Satan at the same time.
These celebrities mainly sell their soul to the devil and are demon possessed, but MK Ultra, of course, and cloning do take in the process. It's a hard complication that none of our human minds can comprehend, unless we actually know the full information.
So let me take you back to a rant I made on the lizard people way back in my Pastor Daniel conspiracy theory video. Here's one of the main beefs I have with a lot of conspiracy theorists, and that is, if the main controllers can go to all the trouble of creating lifelike people, one, what's the point? And two, why don't they just impose their rule over all of us? Clearly they have the ability to create fucking meta-humans out of nothing. Clearly they would have a little bit of an advantage over just your average everyday person. And don't even get me started on the lizard people. Like, if they have already infiltrated all the world's most influential families and are the tops of each respective government, and they have amassed all this power, why bother pretending to be human? They'd be exponentially superior to us. Point being, either way, it's fucking stupid. So let's go over some of the main arguments as to why Taylor Swift is undoubtedly a clone of Zeena LaVey. Aside from the obvious, they look the same argument that conspirators will often cite as being proof that Taylor Swift is an Illuminati Satanist clone. In the parody article by Mashable, they mention a couple of funny coincidences that could be some connection. The first being that Zeena was the high priestess between 1985 and 1990, only leaving the church because she was an overachiever spreading out into other territories and was a crossover queen, much like Taylor Swift. I said it was a parody article. I didn't actually say it was funny. One thing to keep in mind is a lot of the real people that think this is an actual conspiracy genuinely believe this. So moving on, this ties in with the Taylor Swift's landmark album, 1989. The album is named as such because she was born in 1989. This would have been only 1 year prior to Zeena leaving the church, which honestly isn't a bad start to a conspiracy. The problem is a lot of these conspiracy theorists never go like all the way with it. Earlier when I was discussing Zeena's history, I briefly mentioned how when she left the Church of Satan, there was political squabbling. Well, in an interview with Vice magazine in September 25th, 2012, she went into a little bit more detail. Aside from a lot of the politics with the different members of the Church of Satan, the biggest problem was her father, Anton LaVey. During the infancy of the Church of Satan, Zeena stated that her father didn't really have any intention of the church being about Satan specifically. It was only after he started garnering attention that he just kind of rolled with it. After a random San Francisco journalist jokingly referred to him as the first priest of Satan when he walked the streets with his pet lion around. So he figured he could create a religion, as you do. However, by Zeena's account, LaVey was scared of the public and would often become paranoid, hence why he rarely did interviews, instead opting for others, including Zeena, to handle the paparazzi and the press. However, after years of being lied to and treated like shit, more or less, Zeena left the Church of Satan in search of something new. Now, we are talking conspiracy theories here, so let's just forget all the backstory and the facts, and let's just start making shit up so that this conspiracy theory can really take on. The date of Taylor Swift's birth. No. It's when the satanic Illuminati perfected their cloning.
In 1997, they cloned Dolly the sheep. So if they can clone sheeps, imagine what they can do with humans.
Never mind an article from NME stating that cloning animals is only successful 1 out of 100 times because organs and other things are really hard to perfect on animals, let alone human beings. Not to mention the UN has outright banned any sort of like experimentation or cloning, and the United States has 8 states that have it illegal. Wait, why is it only 8 fucking states that this is illegal? Anyway, so Anton LaVey, being heartbroken and distraught that his daughter would leave the order after they had already successfully infiltrated the world's governments, decided he would clone his daughter. However, this time he would make sure she would become a pop culture pariah. And after Zeena's excommunication, she would be blacklisted and would have smear campaigns ran against her to keep her quiet. So as Taylor Swift began to rise in popularity and power, so did her satanic symbolism and metaphors. Specifically the Bad Blood video, where there is supposedly tons of satanic imagery. Which I'm not going to show it here, but it's literally a 2-second search away. Then there is the constant uses of wolves, which the parody article also cites as a definitive piece of evidence citing the werewolf radio venture Zeena and her ex-husband originally ran. Again, the article is a parody. It's not actually funny. The Radio Werewolf project lasted from 1988 to 1993 and was an experimental music group, which reminds me more of like math rock mixed with like the Misfits, more spooky and less glitz and glamour. Honestly, the thing that bugs me the most about a lot of these pop culture conspiracies is that once the mainstream media picks it up, it just gets really fucking like dumb, and not like in a funny way. Like, yeah, it's supposed to be dumb and funny, but the real comedy and story is when it can somewhat connect and has some truth. Instead, a lot of these articles come off as like that preppy nerdy person that never really fit in but was trying to be cool, but still somewhat serious in high school, but was still just annoying. Like, take for example, you have the initial conspiracy, oh man, did you know that like Pokemon is actually Ash in a coma? Cause like in the first episode, he was struck by lightning. Then you got Cynthia's fucking dumbass over there that's like, isn't it weird that Ash woke up late in the first episode? So maybe he was already dead and it connects to the other conspiracy theory. It's fucking stupid. I don't know, to me with conspiracy theories like this, they stop being funny and entertaining once everyone picks up on it. I don't know, it just must be personal preference, but in my opinion, it gets bloated really quickly with too much exposure. I know we have fun in our own ways, and I guess that's okay. If anything, it gives all the tryhards on Twitter something to feel connected to when things like this pop up from time to time. And for the record, Twitter hasn't changed much since 2016 either. So that was the Taylor Swift and Zeena LaVey clone conspiracy. Does it hold any water? No. The Spider-Man clone saga is more thought out, honestly. Aside from them looking similar, that's really all there is to it. Say what you will about the clone saga from the Spider-Man comics, when everything is said and done, you can't argue that at least the clone saga tried harder. At first, the Taylor Zeena clone conspiracy is a bit of fun to sink your teeth into, and then you realize there really isn't much more than just surface level value. A lot of conspiracies along the same vein are easily torn apart by reality or could genuinely be so much better. It's like conspiracy theorists make these giant leaps of connecting the dots and make giant assumptions rather than attempting to keep stories grounded.
But that's just plain nuts! Many of you out there are thinking, right?
Yeah, no shit. Make sure to keep things light and rebellious, and I'll see you guys next time.